Okay, good morning. So we're up to Siman Lamed Beis Sif Gimel, Haloch Gimel. Says the Mechaber, Yichdevem b'diyei shachas. We're talking about writing tefillin. We saw yesterday the four parshas you've got to write, and the importance of writing it in order, and what the parshas are, etc., etc. Now we're talking in Sif Gimel about how do you actually write it, what material, what ink do you use. So says the Mechaber, Yichdevem b'diyei shachar. You got to write it with black ink. Bein sheyesh b'mei afotzim, bein sheloi b'mei afotzim. Whether there is what's called gulnut juice, some call it tannic acid. Bein sheloi b'mei afotzim. Whether you haven't got that. V'lachatchila yachmer lichtov b'diyo hasuya me'ashon eitzim. You should try and use it lachatchila from ink which has been made out of smoked wood or oil. Shuruyim me'afotzim, which have been soaked in this gulnuts. U'kamesh yisbah b'yeredeh siman reish ayin aleph. If you write it with any other colors or with gold, hari elu psulin, that puzzles the tefillin. Im zorak afros zahav alosios, if you use what's called gilded gold lettering, ma'avir hazahav, and you remove the gold gild, v'yeshoy ksav hatachtoin, and then underneath it the ksav is still there for kosher. But if you put gold over one of the azkoros, the shemus of Hashem, then you can't erase it, and therefore in the takona there's nothing you can do. And you can't erase the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, it says the Mishnah Berurah, b'diyei shachar udiyei shemarei odoim lemarei kachol ayin b've'alocha. If you use an ink which is more a slightly different color, has got the mara of kochel, of blue, then check out the be'alocha. Okay, me'ashen eitzim, from the smoke of wood, pirush, v'lo yatzil l'sochel kuma ay kankunusum. You didn't put inside it kuma, which is cumin or kankunusum, shekerem b'lashon Ashkenaz kupavasa, which he says at the bottom is mein nechoshes, some sort of copper water. Ki lechatchila bo'inin ksav sheyochel imachik. Ideally, you need ksav, you need ink, which is impossible to erase it. But this, if you put these materials in, then the ink is going to be permanent. This is all lechatchila, ideally. You can make it from this material. And indeed, nowadays we use a combination of all of them to make our ink. Validate bishul, and you cook it. And that's better. The biyom of leirah gam kein lechod min agdonim shenog glasses b'diyah also mi'ashan eitzim ashmanim. He didn't see the gedolim. One of the gedolim wrote that he didn't see in his day that it was made out of this smoked wood or oil. Maybe he made that out of that. V'chein posel b'sefer get mekusha, or b'sefer birkei Yosef lasis kamin ogenu achshov. The hadiyah also me'ashan eitzim ashmanim is skalkel. Nowadays, if you make it out of this material, actually it will become ruined. V'nimchut b'nokel. It's easy to erase. Alkein eina nagin be'achshov, and therefore we don't make it out of this material nowadays. Udiyah also me'afotzim bilvad, and ink made out of gulnut juice, bilvad. V'lo kuma, without this cumin, sheker b'loshen Ashkenaz guma, oy mikan kunusum bevad, posel afilu b'di'evet. Kein kosovar grob be'er lekamen b'simen tofer sadiyad vayin shom vayin be'halocha. Okay. Mut lichtay tefillin mezuzas b'diyah nase mistam yenom. You're allowed to write tefillin and mezuzas made out of ink, which is made from stam wine. Vayim b'shari tshuva, sif cotton dalet, diyah ein tzorech lasis lishma, that the ink does not need to be made lishma. Okay, ois achas, that if one letter, afil ois achas, is made from ineligible material, then it's possible. Lav dafka ois achas tu hadin miktsas, not necessarily a whole letter, even parts of a letter could go in kutsa shel yud, the little end of the yud, that could invalidate the whole tefillin. B'shar minit tzivonim says if you write it with other colors, says the Mishnah Berurah in Sifkat and Yud, she'elam shachar, colors which are not black. Then red or green, then we said it's no good. Ma'avir, what is this going on? Yeah, if he makes it out of gilded gold and then he removes the gold, says the Mishnah Berurah Yud Aleph, Va'afal gav the kol zman she'ein ma'avir posel, even though so long as you haven't yet removed it, it's posel. And therefore it's the upper writing, the gold, which is the preeminent one, and therefore has the status of the writing. Nonetheless, we don't say that scraping away the gold at the top is a problem, given you're not writing the new one afresh, you're just removing the layer on top. And therefore the lower one is just being exposed. Good.
So an issue of not writing in order.
Right, so that's what it's saying. So just removing the top, you're not rewriting it. It was all written in the correct order. You're just like taking the top layer off, and it's not like rewriting the bottom one, and therefore it would not be a problem. Okay, halacha dalet. Very important and relevant halacha. You've got to make sure that two letters do not touch. When you're writing your tefillin, the letters should not touch. Each letter should have a little border around it, that it doesn't touch the letter next to it. Let's do the Mishnah Berurah on that. V'im ha'is gadol v'nidbak b'sofer. What if the end of the letter just touches the next letter? B'ofen, in a way, she'im nigra mashedovak mikol mokum yishoat tzuras ois. If you just scrape away the end of the letter, then you'd have the tzuras of an ois. Yesh machshirin v'yesh paislin. Some would be machshir and some would pasel it. V'eskimu achronim lahachmir, we try and be machmir. That's the conclusion of the achronim. Al kein tzorich ligrer mokum hadovik. And therefore, what do we do? At the point where the two letters are just touching, you can scrape it away to make sure that each letter is clearly on its own. V'af b'tefillin mezuzas mani tikun. And even in tefillin and mezuzas, this repair work is effective and it works. Because you're not changing the structure and the appearance of the letter, you're just scraping away the points of where the two are just contacting each other. Kolois, so each letter needs to be mukefes gvil, like a little border around it, so it's very clear the appearance of each letter. Even the last letter on the line has got to be fully surrounded with a border that there's clear all the way around it. And if it's not, then even b'di'eved, it's ma'akev and it could spoil the tefillin. Even if you haven't got the border around the little point of the yud, that could passel the tefillin. So that Mr. Shem will get to. Okay.
So I think I understand. What's it mean? This box around the letters.
You're not putting a box there, but there needs to be clear. In other words, there needs to be a parchment cloth around it. You're not putting any borders or anything like that. There needs to be just a clear around each letter. So imagine you see the cloth of your tefillin, and you've got an aleph. So there should be nothing around the aleph. There should be just pure clear around it. That's what it means.
The point that touches the end of the, if you like writing that at the end, if it touches the end of the parchment.
It goes right to the end. We'll see that will come to that. There needs to be space at the end. We'll come to that mission. Okay, so let's carry on the Ramah. So we're in the Ramah in the beginning of Dalet Hagah. The Yichtov Ksiva Tama. It should be clear writing. Shelo Yechsa Afilu Kutzu Shel Yud. You shouldn't miss out even the little point at the end of the Yud. V'yem Mesuyuk Kil Chosei. And there should be crowns according to the halacha. V'lechatchila Yichtov Ksiva Gasa Ktsat. You should write slightly larger lettering. Don't write too small. Shelo Yihun Nimchakim Meheira. Because if you write with a good amount of ink and with large letters, then it's not so easy to erase. It won't erase quickly. And it's nice to beautify it in whichever way you can. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah on that. You've got a new dalet ksiva tamo. Tahainu shelo yichtov beisin coffin. It should be a very clear writing. So your base should be a base, and the kof it shouldn't look like a base. Yeah, the kof and the base, they look a bit similar. It should be a ksiva tamo that is very clear what letter you're writing. So lo yichtov beisin coffin beisin, or zayin nunin zayin. It should be very clear that a zayin is a zayin and nun is a nun. V'chol ki yotze b'zeh, and all those similar letter shapes. Kutzu shel yud, hainu, ukut small shel yud. if you picture the yud, the little bottom left corner should be of the yud. The kolshkenim chose regel yamin de posel, and certainly the right side, which is bigger, that will be posel. What does the actual yud look like? We'll see in Hashem bedinei tzuras ha'osios. There's a whole section of tzuras ha'osios where he describes the shapes of each letter. We'll check that out. Okay, kilchosyai. Now, what does that mean? You've got to write the tiogim, which means the crowns on top of each letter. But osios shatnas guts. Yeah, those letters, shatnas, shin, ayin, tes, nun, zayin, gimel, tzadi, you write tiogim on top of that. Okay, so I've got them here. So shatnas guts. You see that these are in my picture book. So you've got, these are the crowns. You're familiar with them from Sofer Torah. So these are the letters where you have little crowns going up on the top. Shatnas guts. Okay. But however, if you didn't write these crowns, then kosher l'reva poskim mimlo tayog if you didn't put the crowns on. There we're going to discuss in Hashem all the halachas regarding the crowns on each letter. Okay, halacha hey. Says the Mechaber, when you write tefillin, the Sofer needs to write it with his right hand. Even if he can write with both, he should write with his right hand. And if he tries and he writes it with his left hand, psulim, that invalidates the tefillin. If you're able to write others with his right hand. But if he is a genuine lefty, small today havikimin. His left hand is like a regular right-handed person's right hand, and that would be okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah, sheyichtov biyaminai. Says the Mishnah Berurah, de'ein derech ksiva b'smol. So if he's a right-handed person and is trying to write it with his left hand, that's not called writing. V'uadil lasas is a tikkun b'smol, and so too if he needs to repair or fix something up with his left hand, b'inyan ksiva de psul, in the way that it invalidates the writing, would invalidate the tikkun as well. But if you just need to scrape away something, to scrape away the joining of two letters, nearer the kosh afilu b'smol, that would be okay because you're just literally just making a little repair work between two letters. If he uses his left hand, he scratches it away, that would be okay. In the same way that if you have people who are invalid to write the mezuzah, but yet they do this little repair work, that would be okay. As we're going to say in Mishem and Simon Lamates, I'll call upon him, but the Evet Ein Shom. Okay, Besmol. So this is going on, the Mechaber says, Vim Kosov Besmol, it's possible. That's talking about Hainu B'Sholet B'Yamin Levad. If he's a right-handed person, and he writes it with his left hand, then it's possible. Avlim Sholet B'Shtei Yodov. If he's a genuinely ambidextrous person, Afidu Kosov Besmol Kosher. Then, if he writes it with his left hand, he can write equally well with his right or left hand. So if he writes it with his left hand, it's kosher. Even if he writes with his right hand, if all you've got a tefillin written by a right-handed person with his left hand, then you put them on without a bracha. What happens in the following situation? We're talking, till now we've spoken about a kid, a bar mitzvah boy, or whoever, who's writes with one hand and he uses the other hand, to do other things. What about a sofer in that situation? The sofer shekosev b'yamin, a sofer who writes with his right hand, v'chol melachto b'smol, but he does everything else with his left hand, or the other way around. What should he do? Don't become a sofer. Yeah, don't accept him as a sofer. Well, but we don't answer it. Ayin shamatam. Okay. Now, then we said, if it's a yad, but if the sofer is genuinely left-handed, then his left hand is like a right-handed person's right hand, and therefore it's okay. It says in Mishnah Berurah, you've got a new test, have a yamin, al-kain, im kosov b'yaminai, posel. So if, therefore, the left-handed person should be writing with his left hand, but instead writes with his right hand, it obviously puzzles it. Kamobish small, the alma, like a right-handed person who does it with his left hand. If there are alternatives. But we said, but the evid, if there's nothing else, then you put them on without a bracha. Because of Haramah, listen to this unbelievable story. There was a case in Egypt. One sofer, he took the quill with his lips, and he wrote with his mouth. For Kosov boy, and does that work? Upsole, he puzzled it. The ein derech ksiva b'pele kul alma. Writing in this way is not called ksiva. For Kosov Magen Avram, the posla afilim ef shlim sacherim, and that's a psul that even if there's nothing else, that's not even called ksiva, and it doesn't even work. And forget it. V'ayim b'sefer Mishnas Avram b'shem aget mekusha v'oid poiskim the meshavin zeh oy hakosiv b'raglei la kosiv b'yad small. That if someone writes with his foot, Rahman al you occasionally see these things. The person writes with his foot, he equates that with someone writing with his left hand. So if you've got a right-handed person who writes with his left hand, we said it's possible, it's no good. But the evidence, if there's nothing else, then you can put the tefillin on, but without a bracha, and we equate that halacha with someone who writes baragloi with his feet, and that's it. But a person who writes with his mouth, that's a lower level, and that's possible. Even if you find there's nothing else there, then there's no point putting on. Okay, Beseder, we'll leave it there.